fighting for truth, justice, strippers, and whiskey. Did I mention strippers?
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, right there.
I'm leaving right after this drink. Rock and roll, whiskey, and other stories with Bryan Shaw.
Cheers. And welcome to episode 40 of I'm Leaving Right After This Drink, Rock and Roll, Whiskey, and Other Stories. My friends, I'm excited. We made it to episode 40. Who would have ever thought? As I've mentioned in previous episodes, there's not a whole hell of a lot of people watching. At least that's what I say to myself so I don't get nervous. No, I'm just kidding. It is episode 40. Like I said, tonight, I thought I would do something a little bit different. I know for quite some time I've been promising like some interviews and some different stuff. And tonight, it is going to be different. We are going to throw out our very first interview this evening. And right before we get into that, I just want to thank everybody again for liking, sharing, subscribing, and just supporting the podcast in any way they can. I greatly appreciate it. As always, if you want to buy a shot for myself or the wonderful Tits McGee, you can do so by just scanning that QR code right there. And we will greatly appreciate it. And you know what? We'll give you a shout out. We'll take some pictures of us doing some shots, whatever it needs, whatever we need to do so that you guys understand I'm not just pocketing that cash. I legitimately am going to spend that money on some whiskey. So now let's get into it with our first interview. Jeremy Owsley has been a friend of mine now for, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years at this point, not even sure. But Jeremy's a tour bus driver. I've mentioned him on previous podcasts. He's actually got a very cool YouTube channel that's it's called Fan Olars, PHANOLARS. Of course, you would know that, recognize that name because he is a huge Metallica fan. He's got a really cool YouTube channel where he goes out and does some different stuff when he's on the road, goes to different scenes of movies and things like that, and gives you some background information on those sets and stuff like that. So, Jeremy, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you aboard.
Hey, Bryan, thanks for having me. Cheers.
Hey, man. Cheers. I got
Cheers to you.
my Jack Daniels Fire with some cranberries. I'm still trying to get rid of this shit out of my house.
Oh, okay. I am, you just mentioned I'm a big Metallica fan. I am doing a blackened whiskey. I'm a big fan. As you can tell, it's almost time for another trip to the liquor store because I got this one on down there. Blackened
Well, there you
whiskey
go.
mixed with wild cherry Diet Pepsi, which is a fantastic beverage, but unfortunately, it's not available on my market in Nashville, Tennessee. I have to travel to find it. I've found them in Denver, Colorado. I found them in St. Louis, Missouri. My girlfriend found them in Cincinnati, but they're not in every market. But the markets you can find them in, they go really well with blackened whiskey.
Well, that's an interesting concoction. I might have to try that at some point. So Jeremy, you of course have been a tour bus driver now, I think for like 26, 27 years.
I'm
And
on
so
28 years now. I got my CDL 28 years ago this summer. So,
that's crazy,
yeah.
man. So let's talk a little bit about that. Give us a little bit of background on you, like how you got into the business. Of course, you just
Yeah.
mentioned how long you've been doing it. Who have you driven for? Give us kind of a list of all those folks.
Man, I've had a very blessed career that sometimes when I think about it myself, it even blows me away the really cool things I've been able to do. I started driving 98, 99, and kind of living in Nashville, the country music thing definitely. My father was a well known pedal steel guitar player, and he got into driving a bus in his career and kind of gave me the idea that I should learn how to drive a bus. So, when I was a senior in high school, I could drive a Prevost sewer bus, and I did. Uh, so I
Awesome.
knew how to drive one. I could back one. So yeah, I did follow that path. Got my CDL in the summer of '98, and the first real big established tour I did was Reba McEntire and a big co-headline tour with Brooks and Dunn. So that was my first introduction to real professional touring. That was kind of it. But it branched off from there and went more into rock and roll. Dad and I, in March of 1999, met this up and coming rock and rapper guy by the name of Kid Rock. And in 1999, he wasn't super well known just yet, but he was well on his way. And Dad and I got in there kind of in the early stages when he had one bus and a trailer and playing 500 capacity clubs. and we kind of got in with him then and went rolling. And we within a year's time, we went from the tiny little clubs to headlining arenas. Man, it was quite the ride and quite exciting for me to get out there, being a big music fan myself, and get out there and things were just going great. Uh, Companies like Puma gave us all sweatsuits to wear. Calvin Klein gave us sunglasses to wear. Uh, Jim Beam whiskey was giving it to us by the case. Uh, it was uh, it was quite exciting times touring with Kid Rock in 1999 and 2000. We were headlining clubs to theaters to opening for Limp Bizkit, and by 1999, I hate to say this to our Limp Bizkit friends, but Kid Rock was blowing them away that tour, and he was stealing the show and had all the momentum at that point in time, and he was killing it.
So, who are some of the other bands that you've driven for? Because I know you've got quite a resume of all the bands you've driven for.
Yeah,
Who are some of the others you've done?
well, the Kid Rock stuff went kind of branched off, and the next year I went with Uncle Cracker, who was in Kid Rock's band, and we recorded his first record double wide pretty much in the back of the bus with a Pro Tools rig. And so Cracker the next year went out, and I kind of went with him because he was working when Bob wasn't. So I went with Uncle Cracker, whose real name is Matt. But it just really kind of started spinning from there. A lot of hip hop too in my early years. DMX, Jay Z. My dad and I, we were on the Hard Knock Life tour. Uh, we did a lot with DMX and the Rough Riders, Cash Money and the Cash Money Millionaires. R. Kelly, Dad and I both drove R. Kelly a lot, through the years there.
Wow.
And yeah, a lot of Keith Sweat, who was really cool, drove him. R&B singer, I did 3-6 Mafia. I did a run with those guys. So yeah, I got a little bit of hip hop in my background there. I don't really tour with hip hop artists much these days. It's a little bit of a rowdy. It can be a little bit of a rowdy world. I'm really kind of glad to be out of that mess. you know? But yeah.
So tell us. So before we kind of get into some of the other questions about being a tour bus driver, like answer these two questions. These kind of go hand in hand. What's the coolest thing? What's the coolest thing about being a tour bus driver? And what is the worst thing about being a tour bus driver? Because I think I know what the worst part could be, but I'd just be curious to know from an actual driver.
Well, the best thing is, man, a lot of times I get out there and get to touring with bands I like, and bands I know. And it's been kind of rare in my world, but sometimes I have, like when I worked for Kid Rock in 99, 2000, we got to go out and do 10 shows with Metallica. Like you just said, yes, I'm a huge Metallica fan. Yes, that tour was my dream tour. And for 2.5 weeks, I was in absolute heaven. Who gets to go on tour with their favorite band? And those guys were hanging out with us every night. Lars and Bob are super tight. So Lars was in our dressing rooms or on our buses. He was with us every night of that tour. We were all just having a good time. James was friendly with Kid Rock and hanging a little bit here and there. Kirk Hammett and Jason Newsted as well. They all at that time were hanging with us a lot. So that was a great thing. In 2016 and 2017, I drove Megadeth on the Dystopia tour. And once again, another dream come true, getting to know Dave and David and getting to hear some of their stories and stuff. And I'll just branch off one right quick. I was driving and I think we were like coming through Salt Lake City or something, but I had David Ellison in the jump seat and Mustaine come up front. I have a little cooler I keep my drinks in. I keep right up front with me. And I got Mustaine sitting on my cooler, but it's the three of us on the front row there at the bus while I'm driving. And Dave gets into telling a story about Countdown to Extinction. And this was only my second or third day driving them, so Dave didn't really know me too well, and I guess he didn't realize I was that big of a fan. I was like, "Yes, I know Countdown to Extinction." I got on my knees and begged my aunt when I was like 14 to buy me the CD the day it came out at a record store. Yes, I know Countdown to Extinction. But he tells me, he goes, "We once did a record called Countdown to Extinction, and they had this big awards ceremony called the Genesis Awards, which I didn't know what the Genesis Awards were. but the actress Doris Day presented them with the Genesis Award. And what the Genesis Award is, to anybody that doesn't know, it's for animal rights, because all these millionaires were doing these safari and these hunting trips where they were setting these exotic animals loose and then they would go hunt them in a certain area. It was like a planned caged hunt, if you get what I mean. And it bugged Dave. And that's why he wrote Countdown to Extinction about that thing. And then they won that Genesis Award for bringing attention to it. And I just thought that was super cool that he, shared those stories with me and that Doris Day presented them with that award. And all. I thought that was really neat that him and Ellison up there sharing stories with me.
So what's the worst part? The cool part is obviously you get to meet some of your idols, you get to do some of these cool
Yeah.
things. But what's the
Yeah.
what's the worst part about being a tour bus driver?
Well, there are parts that drag to it. I've got to the point of where I don't like long tours anymore. And when I get a call or an email about a tour that's like 8 or 9 weeks long, I'm just like, oh God, is there somebody else that can do this one? I don't want to go out and be gone from the house for 8 or 9 weeks at a time. Uh, that part kind of drags. You'll start getting busy this time of the year in the summertime, and the phone will just be ringing off the hook, and you think you get home and get a few days off, and no, you get a call and you're on your way somewhere else to go pick up another band and go do another thing, and it that part of it kind of gets to be a drag sometimes. And
Because I always thought the worst part about being a driver would be like doing the cleaning of the bus, right? The toilets, making sure the beds are all clean and all that stuff. Like I would have figured that would have been the worst part about being the driver.
that you are right. Let me tell you something. Changing 12 fitted bunk sheets is a pain in the ass and takes a lot of time. I hate that part of the job. Hate it. We have to do it once a week on tour. If you're out on a tour more than 7 days, you got to change the sheets for the guys, and we charge them for it. But one bus driver friend of mine always said, "I hate changing bunk sheets, changing the oil in the generator." He goes, "I'd rather do that twice than change the bunk sheets once." you know. So yes, I hate bunk sheets, especially top bunks. I'm only 5'8". I can't reach a top bunk. I've got to climb up in them, strip a sheet, and dude, you work up a sweat when you do this. Believe it or not, you do. Yeah.
Well, 12 beds, I could understand that.
It takes, and when you're on tour, you got to move everybody's personal items and then make sure their personal items make it back to the bunk. I usually like come and do it in the middle of the night when nobody's on the bus or around. So, I'll come to the bus. We're at a hotel where I can walk to the bus easily or something. I'll come down 2 or 3 in the morning, and it takes every bit of an hour, especially when you got a band on board and you got to move everybody's personal stuff and then move their personal stuff back.
Yeah.
It's a pain. That is one of the parts of the job I do hate. Scrubbing toilets isn't fun either, but I can handle scrubbing toilets. I'll just put on my gloves and do that. It's easier than bunk sheets, man.
And you're not supposed to take a shit on the bus, so that has to make it a little bit easier, right?
Not supposed to, but it happens. Believe me. It's
So before we get into the really cool stuff or, some more in-depth questions or fun questions, whatever you want to call them, like there has to be, at least when you're driving, a lot of shit's going to happen when you're driving, right? Probably see some crazy stuff just observing as you're driving down the road. But what's
yeah.
what's been like a super stressful night? Like, is it just when you break down? Like what happens when you break down, get a flat tire? Obviously that affects the band and your destination and
Yeah.
all that.
That is kind of a pain in the ass part of it, but that does happen. Buses are machinery. They do break down. Uh, a lot of times tour managers and artists will lose it over that. They get really upset about it, but I can think of one night I was driving the band Paramore. And to brag on them, I was their first bus driver in 2006 when they got graduated from a van and got a real tour bus. I was their first bus driver, and I'm proud of those kids. They did really good. They put my name in their record, and they sent me a gold. Oh, you probably can't see it back here on my wall. I have. They were the first band to send me a gold record, so I'm really proud of those kids. But we had an incident in downtown San Francisco. Was coming out and just fixing to get on the Bay Bridge, and power steering mechanism pump just blew up while I was making a left turn, and the bus was just stuck there. And we couldn't find anybody. I was looking all over. got towed to a shop, but it was gonna be a mess because we got towed to a shop, but it was gonna be like 2-week repair job. The kids, the Paramore kids, they all had to fly home. I had to fly home myself because it was the repairs are gonna be so long. I came home and then I flew back out to grab the bus.
Yeah.
But yeah, those kind of things, man. When a band has to leave a tour bus in the middle of the night in a rescue van or another bus, those are stressful, frustrating days. And then if you got to stay behind and lose the band, it's a bitch because then you got tour manager calling you every 30 minutes wanting to know a status on it. And sometimes there just isn't a status to give him, you know. You got
Right.
artists wanting to call you, wanting to come in. The bus company's calling you. Everybody's wanting status reports, and you're not. Especially if you need sleep, you're not getting sleep when you got a bus broke down in the shop. That phone is not going to let you sleep.
Yeah.
Uh, just part of my experiences. And one of the years when I was with the band 311, we broke down and lost a bus the first night of the tour, and I was towed to a repair shop while we were there. The band guys had to come over in a runner van to grab their clothes and the things they needed for the show. And I was like, well, on a good note, while I'm sitting here in the repair shop, I did just hear y'all's new single playing on the radio. Maybe that's a good sign. They'll get us out of here in a hurry.
So here's another question, kind of going,
Hmm.
kind of staying along those lines of like, you got you get these new bands, you've toured with, longtime bands. When you're on the road with them for, a few weeks, whatever that case may be, right? Can you tell when a band is like they're still cool with each other after all these years? You don't have to get into a lot of details. Like, can you just tell instinctively, like, you know what? These guys have been friends for a long time. They're still great friends. And on the other side, when you see a band and you've been on the road with them for a couple of weeks, maybe they're not new, maybe they are, but can you go, I don't see these guys lasting very long just because they're like like maybe it's infighting or just something in general. Do you actually recognize that when when you're around them?
Yeah, somewhat. Yeah, very much so. That's a good question too, because there are times when I'm driving that bus and the door can even be closed, the curtain, whatever the bus has. You sometimes still hear conversations, even conversations you sometimes don't want to hear. You hear.
Right.
And we do sometimes pick up on more than they think or realize or believe. We absolutely can.
So with that being said, it's hard to cut you off. With that being said, do you have like do you or like with your company or whatever, do you have to sign like an NDA or anything with your company,
Yes,
or is it just like an unwritten rule that we don't talk shit about another band because that'll affect our job?
man. That you're very right. And in the last 10 to 15 years, almost every tour you're signing a non-disclosure now because social media's got out of hand. Some guys have not been smart and shared way too much info on their hotels they're at, um, checking in at places they shouldn't be realizing they're checking in. So a lot of guys have got a little silly with that. So yeah, you are correct. Almost every single tour you do nowadays, they want you to sign something or agree to something. And like you said, a lot of guys just know this is just what we do. Even probably even a bus driver doing a podcast is probably frowned upon by a lot of others, but it's okay because most of my stories I'm telling you are from 20, 25, 28 years ago, way before these contracts came out and stuff. But the things I'm currently in, yeah, and the things I'm currently involved with, yeah, I wouldn't want to talk. I mean, you know what I do now and who I work
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
and it's good, great tour. But yeah, probably best I don't mention too many ins and outs of that at the moment. We'll talk about that in 10 years from now when that's all done and wound up.
So I think this is a kind of an interesting question too. So every bus you've ever driven in 28 years is in a parking lot. That's going to be a lot of buses. What's the bus you go to, and why do you go to that bus? Because obviously something cool or crazy happened on that bus. So why do you pick that bus?
That's a really good question too. I like that. Um, and there are a few that have been special to me over the years. And one of them, I'll say, was called 5505 because I learned how to drive a lot on that bus, and it's an old Prevost XL, uh, mid 90s model. That bus was probably a 94 model, if I remember correctly. But I ran into that bus in 2013. I don't remember which band it was, but it was a band opening for Volbeat. And I saw that bus parked at the Tabernacle, and I could not believe it. I was like, that bus is very special to me, and it's really old by now, but I drove that bus when I was pretty much learning how to drive. That was one of the ones I learned a lot on that bus, and it was called 5505 was its number. It was a Florida coach, Jerry Calhoun build. Um, and as of about 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when I saw Volbeat in Atlanta, it was still on the road. I can't remember what company owned it, but
Wow.
it was still out there. It was good. It was like seeing an old friend. It was good to see. I didn't get to go inside it, so I don't know if they updated the interior or not by now. But another bus that's sacred to me, and I don't know if your people can see this or not, but this is my business card, and that bus on it was called Gypsy. It was a 2009 Prevost XL2 built by Roberts Brothers, and I drove that bus. It was fairly late model when I got in it, and the company I switched and went to, that bus ended up coming over there later, and I got to drive it again at another company, and I got to drive ZZ Top on that bus and a
Wow,
lot of
that's
other
cool.
bands. Yeah, a lot of other bands on it, and that bus is special to me, and it's gone now. I asked about that bus several years ago, and it was sold. We sold it, and nobody seemed to remember where it was, and I haven't seen it out there. I don't know if it's been painted or if somebody did something with it, but that bus, it's not at our company anymore, but it was called Gypsy, and the last four were 9446, the last four of the VIN. And another bus very special to me is we talk about our mutual friend Randy Walker. Hi, Randy, if you're watching us. Uh, I got this bus called Tempest, and I got it brand new. It was just built, and I took Ted Nugent on it for his first tour. Well, actually, I did a weekend trip with a Christian artist. Then I did Ted Nugent for 9 weeks, a long summer tour, and that bus was brand new, and it's just awesome to get a brand new bus. And then I got it back the next year, and we did a second summer in a row in it with Ted Nugent, and that bus is great. I really liked it. It was involved in an accident. It was in that Blues Traveler accident, and it's been completely rebuilt. It's still around, and it was a 2018. It's still around, but I think it's got quite a few miles on it now. And another thing we talk about are ghost buses, buses that are involved with a death, a fatal accident. Scott Weiland's bus, the Blind Melon bus. Uh, you know, there we call those ghost buses if there's been a death involved, and that's just something we talk about in bus world.
That's cool. So just a few more questions. We'll wrap this up because I like to
Yeah,
keep
yeah,
my podcasts, short
I
because
know, and
but this
I'm
is
with you
but
on
this
that. Yeah,
but hey man, but this is different because we're talking tour busing, we're talking cool shit. And I think, some people don't know this world or maybe are even interested in it to some degree and have never heard really anybody talk about being a tour bus driver or nothing like that. So here's a really important question. Best
okay.
truck stop to stop at and the best food when you're on the road at a truck stop.
Oh, the Iowa 80s. There's a truck stop called the Iowa 80s. It's the biggest truck stop in the world. Uh, that one's always fun because the store is huge, and they have things in that store you cannot find anywhere else in the country. Like my wash brush that I wash buses with, it's like a 16 or 18-inch brush head. I can't find those things anywhere, but I found them at Iowa 80s. So, I just bought a pole from Home Depot, put it on, and that's my brush head I use to wash buses. Um, and Bucky's are fun. Bucky's are always fun. I definitely love my Bucky's. A
Can you
lot of tour
stop in
buses you will
Bucky's?
see.
I
Oh
thought
yeah.
Bucky's. Oh, so you can stop in. It's just the semis aren't allowed in Bucky's.
No, and boy, they've made some truck drivers mad with that. I tell you what.
Now the
They
best food.
I've never
Best
been
food.
asked to leave in a bus. So I'm always a fan of the truck stop hot dog, man. Uh And I got a little
The
disappointed
one that's
because
been on the
Pilot.
roller for like 3 days?
Yeah, yeah, hey, those are great. I mean, yeah, I've had some that have been on the roller too long, but Pilot and Flying J took out their rollers, man. You go to a Pilot and Flying J, they always had the best hot dogs. They've about the hot dog truck stop. The truck stop hot dog is pretty much extinct. You very rarely see them anymore unless you're at a TA and yeah, they look like they've been spinning on that roller for 7 days. Yeah.
So, I feel like this is a great question, and because I think that, like, I know in my career in radio and TV, like, most of the people that I met were really cool. There's definitely a few, jerks along the way that you're gonna meet just
Yeah,
by just time, right? Just over time, it's just gonna
yeah,
happen. And I don't wanna talk about those people. I wanna talk about the bad people because who really cares about those guys? What I wanna know is, like, who are some of the coolest people where you thought because of maybe how big they were or just who they were, you were thinking going into it like, "Man, this is gonna be weird," or, "I'm not sure if I'm gonna like them," and you turned out like they were turned out to
yeah.
be some of the coolest people, unexpectedly cool.
Yeah, you know what? And one does immediately pop to mind that I will talk about. Leanne Rhymes. You know, I really thought she was gonna be prima donna, a little high maintenance, and I was couldn't have been further from that. She was so nice, so sweet, very friendly to me. I wasn't with her long. It was just a couple of day trip, but I really had her pegged as probably being a prima donna, pretty high maintenance. Nah, she was very down to earth, very nice to me, very friendly, and honestly, I hope I get to cross paths and do another run with her again because she was great. She's absolutely great.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Anybody
yeah.
else? Anybody else fall in that
Uh,
world?
Um, I have a really cool story I'll share with you for a moment. And you being down there in Florida, you'll like this story. In 2017, I drove for Olivia Newton-John, the legend Olivia
Get out
Newton-John.
of here. Let's get
Yes. Well,
physical.
yeah. So she flies into the first show and will fly home from the last. So we left out of Nashville with her band and crew on one bus. We drive to Jacksonville, Florida was the first show. They played that show. I went to the hotel and went to bed. I didn't even get to meet her the first night. The next morning in Jacksonville, we did a day drive from Jacksonville to Orlando. And Orlando was the last show. She was flying home from Orlando. So I met, pulled the bus up in front of the hotel, and I got to meet her the next morning because she was going to do the day drive with us on the bus. She was very sweet, very nice lady. Just some pleasantries. How you doing? A pleasure to meet you. She gets on the bus. Well, we start rolling out of there to head to Orlando, and everybody on the bus starts flipping out. And there's 6, 7, 8 people on the bus. They're like, "Oh my God, there's no coffee cups. We got to have coffee cups." And somebody's on their phone, and somebody's like, "Hey, there's a Target at this next exit. Can you whip off into that Target so we can get some coffee cups?" I was like, "Hey, sure." So I pull off the interstate and I pull into a Target parking lot there in Jacksonville. And as I drive through the Target parking lot and get up by the door, my door of the bus is going out towards the parking lot, not the curb side of the door. But everybody was in such a hurry for coffee cups, they just all come flying off the bus and don't even let me get curbside. So next thing I know, it's just me and Olivia on the bus, and she comes up there, and I thought she was going into Target too. She goes, "I'm gonna go sit right there on that bench and get me some of this Florida sunshine." And there was a park bench right in front of the Target store. And I was like, "Okay, yeah." So she gets off the bus and goes alone, no handler with her, nothing. She just goes and sits there. And she had a big hat and some sunglasses on. And I'm sitting there going, "Well, I need to go spin around in the parking lot and pull back up curbside to pick everybody up because I was kind of causing a traffic jam and kind of mass chaos when a big bus is in the middle of Target. So I sit there and I go, "Wait, I don't want to pull off because I might scare her. She might think I'm leaving and come running. I don't want her to do that." So I got off the bus and I went to her at the bench and I was like, "Miss Olivia, I'm gonna go out here in the parking lot and spin the bus around and come back curbside. Just letting you know what I'm doing." And she's like, "Oh yeah, honey, you do what you need to do." She was so nice. I was like, "Okay, just letting you know." So I get in the bus, I spin it around in the parking lot, and I come back curbside and kind of sitting there just watching her because I'm like, nobody was with her. She didn't have any handlers, and everybody was in Target. And I watched people, must have been in the 10 or 12 minutes or so we were there, I probably watched 150 people walk by her, and nobody has a clue this is Olivia Newton-John sitting on the bench in front of a Target. And I'm gonna say, because I was a little bit blown away by her, Grease, Miss Olivia Newton-John.
Right.
I was a little bit, and I was just still scratch my head that how many people are walking back and forth by this woman have no clue. Nobody even chimed in on it. Nobody talked to her. So I sit there and everybody gets on the bus and we get rolling. And this was really nice because some people like her are really nice. But one of her guys came up front and sat in the jump seat. And there was a door on that bus, a door that closed off the front lounge. And he said, "Hey, I need to pass a compliment your way because the door was shut. I know you didn't get to hear it." He said, "But Miss Olivia said that you are a really great, smooth driver." And I was like, "Oh, she did?" And he goes, "Yeah, she said that. I know you didn't hear it, and I thought you deserved to hear that compliment, so I wanted to tell you about it." And I was like, "Man, that much respect, man. That's super nice. Made my day." And I still
That's
brag about
awesome.
it to this day. I
That's
still
awesome.
brag
And
about that to this day.
I think that should be said too, right? Because it's not just about you just getting them from point A to point B. It's about the smooth ride to get them from point A to point B. Because obviously they're sleeping and they're doing their thing. They're living on
Right.
that bus. And so it's not just, hey,
Yeah.
we just got to get you there in time. It's got to be smooth
Yeah.
and you got to really be paying
And
attention when you're driving.
yeah, and we do try to do that, but the shape of the roads in this country right now. Florida's pretty good, really. I'm impressed with Florida. They got good roads down there, but a lot of this country, man, even here in Nashville, Tennessee, our roads are just not very good right now. We had snow and ice this winter, and yeah, our roads are a mess right now. They really are.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up on this question
Okay.
because I know things could get a little tiresome out on the road. So
Okay.
there has to be fun and games and jokes and things like that that happen between the band members or the crew and maybe even yourself. So can you tell us about like a funny joke prank that somebody either did on you or you did on somebody when you're out on the
Yeah.
road?
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to my very first year of driving, and the band was Dr. Hook. Remember
Oh
Ray
wow.
Sawyer, Dr. Hook? So
Wow.
the original keyboard player was a guy named Billy Francis. And I've heard I Googled him the other day and I saw he's passed on. He's no longer with us. But man, he was a nice guy and he was fun. He was a funny guy. I did pull a prank on him, and I don't know how this necessarily got started, but in the refrigerator, somebody had a pitcher, just a pitcher of water that was about that full, just a couple inches from the bottom. And Billy opened the fridge when everybody was there in the front lounge. When Billy goes, "Hey, there's this pitcher of water in here. I've noticed it for a few days. Is this anybody's?" Uh, and nobody on the bus fessed up to owning this pitcher of water. And he goes, "Well, I'm going to trash it." And we're like, "Yeah, okay, let's go ahead and trash it." So Billy dumps out the water in the sink, and then he throws the pitcher in the trash can, and it goes down the trash chute. So later on that night, I went to take out the trash, and I look, and here's that pitcher in there. So I got that pitcher out, washed it off, cleaned it up, and I put it back in the fridge with about that much water in it. And the next day, Billy the same. He's like, "Man, what? This pitcher keeps coming back. What is the deal with this?" And he dumps it out and throws it away again. Well, I made it now a point to dig it out of the trash every time and put it back in the fridge. And finally, one day, I just went off. I was like, "God damn it, Billy! I'm sick and tired of you. Here, let me put it into this shit right now." I grabbed the pitcher, dumped it out, and then I threw it away. And then I immediately went down and dug it back up out of the trash. Now, see, now you and your listeners probably think that's the stupidest thing ever. But see, on the road, we got to do shit like that just to keep our minds sane and to have a few laughs. And I did I did I wore old Billy out on that pitcher.
Dude, that's awesome. So listen, man, me and you could have I could ask you 1,000 more questions. And I
Yeah,
think what we'll do is we'll just have you back again on a future
well, let's
date
do it.
to talk more stories, talk more rock and roll and
Yeah,
all these crazy things that is involved in being a tour bus driver. So, but
yeah,
for today, we'll call it quits. But first of all, let me say thank you for joining me for episode 40. This is huge. 40 episodes.
yeah.
I'm pretty
Well,
jazzed
thank
about
you.
that. I also want to say I appreciate the fact you let me play on your drums at one point when I visited
Yeah,
Nashville.
we got a picture. Yeah, back here, my lovely music room here. I use my walls of gold and platinum for the backdrop to kind of brag a little bit.
Hey,
If you
man.
get what I mean.
You gotta do it, man. And I've
Yeah.
sat behind that kit, and the best I could do was just a rim shot, and I'll take it. And but man, it has been a lot of fun. I'm glad you were able to join us today for this episode. And like I said, we will definitely have you back.
Let's
And
do it.
before we get out of here, let me of course wrap things up by thanking everybody for tuning in, liking, sharing, subscribing. As always, make sure you guys scan that QR code and buy myself or Tits McGee or both of us a shot of whiskey, man. Neither one of us are shy about drinking our whiskey. And make sure you guys check out Jeremy's channel. I'll put a link in the description. Of course, I'll put it here on the screen as
Thank
well.
you.
Fan O Lars is his YouTube channel, and he's got some really cool videos up there. His are,
Thank you.
very short. They get to the point, but they're awesome. They're super informative and fun at different, movie and TV locations, around the country. So make sure you check out his channel, subscribe to
Yeah.
it, leave him a
Come
comment.
join me
whatever.
come join me on an adventure or two. I would love to have you along. Please come
Exactly.
subscribe. Thank you.
So until the next episode, cheers, my friends.
Cheers, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe. You dig?
God bless the internet.